The day when the world will be in a high spirit of celebration is the day there is a hidden agenda by the devil against the world and its inhabitants. This urgent message is for every man or woman who wants to escape the coming disaster that will befall the earth on July 19th, the day of the final World Cup. And the most unfortunate thing is that what is about to happen will start to manifest while everyone is watching. The signs are revealed, and the moment you see the sign, don't wait, run to hiding, and keep your doors closed and use all that you will save from now to when salvation will come. Tell us where you are watching from so that we can connect with you across the globe, and we promise to reply to every comment you drop. I will begin sharing today's experience. I will say this before anything. On July 19th, when the World Cup final begins, be alert. When the signs in the sky appear during that match, do not wait to see who wins. Move immediately. Yes, please hear me to know what is coming, beloved. I have never been the kind of person who goes on social media and tells people about dreams or experiences or visions. That is just not me. I am a practical man. I deal with facts. I deal with numbers and schedules and decisions that have real consequences in the real world. So believe me when I tell you, it took a lot for me to sit down and write this. It took a lot, but something happened. And then after that something happened, I saw something that I cannot explain away. I saw it with my own 2 eyes. And when I saw it, something inside me just broke open. I sat in my car for almost 40 minutes and I could not move. I just sat there and I kept thinking, he told me this would not happen, and now I am watching it happen. And I thought about all the people who do not know, all the people who are going about their days, buying things and planning things, and worrying about small things, and they have no idea what is coming. That is when I decided I had to write this. Not because I want attention, not because I want people to think I am special or spiritual or anything like that, but because if even one person reads this and takes it seriously and does something to get themselves ready, then this was worth writing. My name is Marcus Ellison. I am 44 years old. I work as an officiating official for the 2026 World Cup Sports Authority. I have been doing this job for about 11 years now. My job puts me in the middle of large events, big crowds, big stadiums, international competitions. I have been part of the preparation and organization of World Cups that bring hundreds of thousands of people together. I have sat in rooms with very senior people making very consequential decisions. I have been involved in logistics that most people never think about. The layers upon layers of planning and coordination that go into making something of that scale work. The security frameworks, the transportation grids, the communication systems, the protocols for every scenario you can imagine, and several you hope you never have to use. I know how complicated the world is behind the scenes of something that looks simple to the person watching at home on their television. So when I say that I was deep in the work of preparing for 2026 World Cup, like you all know, one of the events in recent history, one that was going to bring the entire world together in a way that almost nothing else does, I want you to understand what my life looked like at that time. I was busy, I was focused, I was in meetings and site reviews and planning sessions from early morning to late at night. My mind was always on logistics, on deadlines, on details that had to be exactly right because the whole world was going to be watching. Now about near-death experiences, listen, I have to be honest. I used to hear about those, and I would think, okay, this is someone who went through something traumatic, and their brain created an experience to cope with it. I did not say this to people because I did not want to be rude, but that was what I thought. People who came back from the edge of death talking about tunnels and light and meeting Jesus, I just figured that was the brain doing something under extreme stress. I have read a few articles about the neuroscience of it, oxygen deprivation causing hallucinations, the brain's own chemistry producing experiences that feel transcendent but are really just biology. I found those explanations reasonable and comfortable, and I held on to them. I never believed those were real encounters with another world. I never believed any of that. I want to be very clear about where I was standing so that when I tell you what happened to me, you understand I had no motivation to make this up. There was nothing in me that wanted or expected or was looking for this kind of experience. Nothing at all. This happened about 1 month and 1 week ago from when I am writing this. We were about 5 or 6 weeks from the opening ceremonies of a World Cup one that my organization had been preparing for across multiple years. The pressure at that point was enormous. Every day brought new problems to solve, new decisions that needed to be made quickly, and the whole operation was running at full speed. I had not been sleeping properly for weeks. My eating habits were bad. I was running on coffee and adrenaline and sheer stubbornness. Deborah kept telling me I needed to slow down, that my body was telling me something, and I kept telling her I would rest after the tournament was over. That night, I came home late. It was well past 10 in the evening. I remember eating something quickly, barely tasting it, and then going to sit in the living room to review some documents on my laptop. Deborah had already gone to bed. The house was quiet. I remember feeling a tightness in my chest that I had been ignoring for a few days. I thought it was stress. I thought it was just my body responding to the pressure of the season. I took a drink of water and kept reading the documents in front of me. And then it happened very fast. The tightness in my chest became something else entirely. It became a pressure, a crushing pressure, like something very heavy was being placed on my chest from the outside. My left arm started to feel strange, a kind of numbness and heaviness that moved up toward my shoulder. I remember closing my laptop and thinking, I need to get Deborah. I stood up from the couch and I took maybe 2 steps and then everything went wrong. The pain came in a wave that took my breath completely away. I went down. I remember the floor coming up toward me, and that is the last thing I remember before the world went away. What I am about to tell you now, I have gone over in my mind hundreds of times. I have tried to find another explanation. I have tried to tell myself it was a dream or that my oxygen-deprived brain was creating images. But what I experienced was not like any dream I have ever had. Dreams are fuzzy and incomplete, and they do not make sense when you look at them too closely. What happened to me was clear. It was more clear and more real than anything I have experienced in my waking life. I am telling you what happened as honestly and as carefully as I can. I became aware that I was somewhere else. Not in my living room, not anywhere I recognized. I was aware of myself, my thoughts, my sense of who I was. All of that was completely intact, but I was not in my body. I understood that without needing anyone to tell me. I just knew it the way you know things sometimes without explanation. And I was moving or being moved in a way that did not require legs or effort. There was light around me, and it was not like the light in a room or even outside on a bright day. It was a different kind of light. It was light that felt like something. It is hard to put into words because we do not have words for things like this in everyday life. But it was light that had warmth in it, not just temperature warmth, but something deeper than that. And then there was someone there. I am not going to try to describe the full experience of being in his presence because I do not have the words to do it properly. What I will tell you is that I knew who he was the moment I became aware of him. Not because of how he looked, though I was aware of him, but because of what I felt when I was near him. Something in me that had never reacted to anything before just opened up completely, like something that had been closed for a very long time. I understood in that moment, in a way that went all the way down to whatever I am made of, that this was Jesus Christ. Not a concept, not a story from a book. A real person who was more real than anything I had ever encountered. And I was terrified and overwhelmed, and at the same time I felt something that I still cannot name properly. Something like being completely known and completely accepted at the same time. He did not rebuke me for my years of doubt. He did not make me feel small for the things I had not believed. That is not what happened. What happened is that he began to show me things. And I understood that he was showing me these things because people needed to know. Not to cause fear, not to cause panic, but because he loves people and he does not want anyone to be without warning. The first thing he showed me was the world as it is right now. He showed me the way people are living, the busyness, the rushing, the distraction, the way almost everyone is focused on things that are immediate and visible and measurable. He showed me events happening in various parts of the world, gatherings of people in massive numbers, celebrations, the kind of joy that comes when humanity comes together around something they love. And as he showed me this, he revealed to me a sense of urgency underneath all of it, like a clock running down that nobody in the picture could see or hear. He showed me that this time, this specific period we are living in right now, is not an ordinary time, that the world is standing at a threshold it has never stood at before, that the things that are coming are not far off. They are close in a way that most people do not understand, because they have no reason to look for them. He then began to reveal to me what is ahead, and the weight of it was so heavy that I cannot describe it without my hands trembling even now as I type these words. He showed me something coming in the sky, something that has been moving for a very long time, far out beyond what human instruments can see properly. A body, a planet-like object, massive beyond my ability to comprehend, that has been on a path toward this solar system for longer than any living person has been alive. He showed me that this object is real and that it is coming. He showed me that scientists have detected it at various points, some of them, but that the knowledge has not been spread widely. He revealed to me that when this body comes close enough, it will do something to the sun. It will move between the earth and the sun, not completely and not permanently, but enough. Enough to create a darkness. And not just an ordinary darkness, the way it gets dark at night. He showed me the darkness. I do not have the right words for what I saw. Imagine the deepest, most absolute darkness you have ever experienced. A room with no windows and no light anywhere. And then make that darkness feel alive, feel heavy, feel like something pressing in from every direction. That is the closest I can come to describing what he showed me. A darkness that covers the entire earth at once. Not one part of it, not one country or one hemisphere. Every part of the earth at the same time. 3 days and 3 nights of this darkness. 72 hours of a world with no sunlight, no natural light of any kind. And guess what? This will begin the date, 19th of July, the day of the World Cup final. And he showed me what that means for how the world works. Everything that runs on electricity, which is almost everything now, would stop. All of it. Not just the lights, the phones, the computers, the networks that banks run on, the systems that hospitals use, the grids that keep food cold and water running and traffic moving. Everything goes quiet at once. He showed me cities going dark in an instant, like someone reaching over and switching off billions of switches at the same time. And the reaction of people, the immediate reaction, is not calm. It is not organized, it is terror. Because when everything you depend on vanishes all at once, with no warning and no explanation, the human mind goes to very dark places very quickly. He showed me hospitals. He showed me people on machines that keep them alive, and those machines going silent. He showed me operating rooms where procedures were happening, and the lights going out in the middle of them. He showed me the very old and the very sick, people who needed constant care and constant monitoring, and what happens to them when that care and monitoring disappears without warning. The death toll in just the first hours would be something that no disaster in modern history has come close to. Not because of violence, not yet, but simply because of the immediate failure of all the systems that keep sick and fragile people alive. He showed me the first day. The chaos of the first day is mostly about panic and the collapse of the systems. People trying to understand what is happening. People with no frame of reference for this, no preparation, no way to get information because information requires electronics. People going out into the streets and finding that their neighbors are just as lost as they are. The darkness itself, he showed me, does something to the human mind beyond just the absence of light. It presses on people, it weighs on them. People who might normally hold themselves together begin to unravel quite quickly when they have been in absolute darkness for several hours, with no end in sight and no explanation. He showed me that the temperature would be held. He revealed to me clearly that the earth would not become an ice age during this time, that God himself would hold the temperature in a way that was an act of mercy. People would feel cold, but not a deadly cold, not a freezing cold, enough to need blankets and warm things, but not enough to kill from cold alone. That is important to understand. That detail he revealed to me clearly, and I believe he wanted it to be known because he does not want people to be afraid of freezing. That is not what this is. But cold will be felt, and warmth will matter, and food and water and light from candles or oil lamps will matter very much. He showed me the second day. By the second day, the initial panic has given way to something that is in some ways worse than panic, because panic at least has energy in it. What comes on the second day as the darkness continues and people realize this is not going to end in a few hours is despair. A settling, heavy despair. People isolated in their homes or wherever they ended up, unable to communicate, unable to know if their family members are safe, unable to know what is happening or why or when it will end. He showed me people alone in apartments and cities, completely cut off from everything and everyone. He showed me families huddled together who had managed to stay together, some of them praying, some of them just holding each other. He showed me the difference between those who had been warned and those who had not. And that difference was visible. Those who had been warned, who had gathered their family, who had covered their windows, who had stocked water and food and candles, who were praying and resting in the protection of God, those people were frightened, but they were not destroyed by the experience. But those who had no warning, no preparation, no spiritual foundation to stand on, many of them began to come apart in ways that were very hard to watch. He showed me something else about the second day that I need to talk about carefully. He showed me that there are things that move in that darkness. I am going to say this clearly because he showed it to me clearly. During those 3 days, there are spiritual forces, demonic entities, that are allowed to move through the world in a way they are not normally permitted to. He showed me that the darkness is not just physical darkness. It is also a kind of spiritual darkness, a window of time when things that are normally restrained are given a temporary freedom to roam. People who go outside during this time, people who open their doors, are exposed to things that are not just physical dangers. He showed me people experiencing things they could not explain, encounters with presences that filled them with a terror that was different from ordinary fear, a deep and bone-level terror. He showed me people dying from this terror, not from violence, not from physical injury, but from the sheer overwhelming force of what they encountered in the darkness. Their hearts simply stopped. He was very clear that his instruction is to stay inside, cover the windows, lock the doors, do not open them for anyone, do not look out. Trust him and call on him, and he will send his angels to stand around the home. He showed me people who followed this instruction, and the difference was striking. Around homes where people were praying, where they had followed the instructions they had been given in advance, there was a visible protection, something different about those homes. And he revealed to me that anyone who calls on the name of Jesus Christ during those 3 days, sincerely from wherever they are, will be heard. That is one of the purposes of this time, to strip everything away so that people who have never truly called on God finally do. Because when every other source of comfort and security and distraction is gone, what is left is the question of whether there is a God and whether He hears you. And the answer is yes, He hears. He is not absent during those 3 days. He is very present. But His presence requires that people turn to Him instead of away from Him. He showed me the third day, and by this point in what He was revealing to me, I was not doing well emotionally. I understood that I was being shown these things not to torture me, but because He wanted me to carry this knowledge back and share it. But it was very heavy, it was very hard to see. The third day brings the most severe wave of what this darkness contains. He showed me cities, large modern cities full of millions of people, in a state of complete breakdown. Not just systems failing, but human social structures failing. The invisible rules that hold society together, the assumption that there are consequences for violence, the assumption that authorities exist who will respond if something goes wrong, all of that becomes meaningless when the darkness continues long enough. He showed me places where violence broke out, where people who were already unwell mentally were pushed completely over the edge by the combination of the darkness, the isolation, and the spiritual activity happening around them. He showed me loss, real loss, the kind that cannot be undone. But He also showed me the resurrection. I do not know how else to say what I saw. He showed me the earth itself responding, moving, the ground in places literally opening, as what I understood to be the graves of those who had died believing in Jesus Christ. I did not see bodies or anything like that. What I understood and what I saw was more like a massive release, a simultaneous event happening across the entire earth, in every country, every continent, the graves of God's people releasing what they contained. And at the same moment, He showed me living believers, those who had lived faithfully and surrendered completely, being changed, not taken away visibly in a dramatic spectacle, changed, transformed, in a moment. Gone from the state they were in and made into something else, something that is difficult to describe because it does not correspond to anything in ordinary human experience. He revealed to me that not all who call themselves believers would be part of this. There are many people who name the name of Jesus Christ, but who live in ways that show it has never truly changed them. People who are comfortable in their faith, but not surrendered to it. People who know the words, but have not given their hearts. He showed me that for those people, this is a time of accounting. A time of looking honestly at what they actually believe and how they have actually lived. And many of those people, He showed me, would have a chance even after this to choose fully. But the cost would be very high, the path would be much harder. He looked at me at this point in the experience, and He revealed to me something personal. He showed me that I was being given this experience precisely because I was not a believer, because I was the last person anyone would expect to carry this kind of message. He showed me that part of the purpose was so that when people heard this, they could not dismiss it as coming from someone who was already deep in religious circles. I am an officiating official in a sports authority. I prepare for world events. I deal in facts and logistics. I have no reason to invent this. He revealed to me that this was intentional, that part of reaching people is reaching them through voices they do not expect. He also showed me what comes after the 3 days of darkness. And this part is important. The darkness ends, the light comes back, the sun returns. And when it does, the world that exists in that light is a changed world. The systems come back online, but not all of them the same way. He showed me technology being rebuilt, and He showed me that the rebuilding is aided by influences that are not from God. He showed me a deception that is very powerful, very convincing, being used to explain both the darkness itself and the technology that helps restore things afterward. He showed me people being told that what happened was a cosmic event predicted by advanced knowledge, and that the entities helping to restore things are benevolent forces here to assist humanity. He showed me how convincing this deception would be, how even people who had doubts would find it very difficult to hold on to those doubts in the face of the apparent evidence. And then He showed me the man. He rose into a position of authority during the chaos of the aftermath. He showed me this man as someone who was already known, already trusted in certain circles, but who became globally prominent because of the events of the 3 days, and because of what he was seen to do in the immediate aftermath. He had answers when no one else had answers. He had solutions when the world was desperate for solutions. He spoke in a way that made people feel understood and safe and united. He talked about humanity as a family, about the need for everyone to work together, about leaving behind the old divisions that had caused so much suffering. He was compelling, he was brilliant, he was kind in the way he presented himself. And I want to be honest with you, in the way he was shown to me, if I had encountered this man without any of the context I had been given, I think I would have found him convincing. That is important to say. He is not going to look like a villain. He is not going to come across as threatening or sinister in the way you might expect. He is going to look like the solution the world has been waiting for. He is going to feel like relief. And that is exactly what makes him so dangerous. He revealed to me that this man's rise would be swift and that it would be aided by things that look miraculous, things that seem to confirm his authority and his legitimacy. He showed me that people who should have been skeptical would not be, because the events of the 3 days had shaken their capacity for critical thinking, had left them raw and desperate in a way that made them vulnerable to the first person who showed up with confidence and answers. He showed me nations coming together under his leadership in a way that has never happened before in history, a speed of consolidation of global power that would have been unimaginable before those 3 days of darkness changed everything about how people thought and what they feared. And what he brought with him, after a certain period of time of establishing himself and his government, was a system, a way of marking and tracking every person in the world. He showed me the technology, and it was not crude or obvious, it was sophisticated, and it was presented as a solution to real problems. Problems of security, of identity, of ensuring that resources went to people who needed them and not to those who were exploiting the system. It was presented as the logical next step after the chaos of the 3 days of darkness, a way to ensure that nothing like that could destabilize the world again, a way to make sure every person was connected to the global system and could access what they needed. He showed me how it would be announced, and the announcement would be calm and rational and full of language about inclusion and equity and making sure no one was left behind. The language of care, the language of protection, but underneath that language was something else entirely. He showed me the mark itself. He did not show me every detail of it, but he showed me enough. He showed me that it would be something applied to the body, and that once it was accepted, it would do something more than just identify a person. It would connect them to the system in a way that went deeper than they understood. He showed me people accepting it without fear, accepting it with relief, even accepting it with gratitude, because it restored to them the ability to buy food and medicine and access services. He showed me what it meant for those who refused it. He showed me the cost of refusing. It was severe. It meant being cut off from everything that the new system controlled, which was everything. Food supply, healthcare, housing, employment, everything that the modern world runs on. He showed me people losing their homes because they could not work without the mark. He showed me families split apart because some members accepted it and some refused. He showed me children being taken from parents who refused. He showed me communities of people who had refused gathering together in ways that were not comfortable or glamorous, helping each other survive without the system, some of them doing so successfully and some of them not. He showed me the persecution that came against those who refused, not always through violence, though violence came too, but through the quieter and in some ways more crushing methods of simply making life impossible without the mark. And he showed me that all of this was not an accident or an overreach. It was designed. It was the goal from the beginning. The 3 days of darkness had not been manufactured by this man, but he had been ready for them, positioned and prepared to step into the vacuum they created. And everything that followed was according to a plan that was very old and very deliberate. He showed me the believers who were still on the earth after the transformation and the resurrection, those who had been too lukewarm, too caught up in the world, too compromised in their walk with God to be part of what had happened. He showed me these people in the aftermath, and I want to tell you, what I saw in them was a clarity they had not had before. The experience of the 3 days and of seeing what had happened to the graves, of watching people they knew simply be gone, had burned away the lukewarmness completely. He showed me these people refusing the mark, knowing what it would cost them, and standing firm. He showed me some of them dying for this refusal, being put to death for it in various ways, in various places around the world. But he showed me their end, what waited for them, and it was not a bad end. It was a true end, a complete end. He revealed to me that those who lost their lives refusing the mark of this system were not lost. They were received. Their choice cost them everything in this world and cost them nothing in eternity. He showed me the period of time between the end of the 3 days of darkness and the actual literal return of Jesus Christ to the earth. He showed me it is not immediate. There is a span of years, 3.5 to 7 years, he revealed, in which the world continues under this system. Wars continue. Famines continue. The territory of Israel and the city of Jerusalem become focal points of global events in ways that will be undeniable to anyone who has ever read prophetic scripture. The whole earth goes through a period of pressure and intensity that is unlike anything in human history. And then at the end of that time, he returns, not as a vision, not as an experience like what I was having, but physically, visibly, in a way that every person alive on the earth at that moment will see and know. I do not know how long I was in that state. I do not have a way to measure it. But I became aware at some point that the experience was ending, that I was being returned to my body. The last thing I was aware of before coming back was a sense of instruction, a strong and clear sense that what I had been shown was not just for me, that the reason I was being brought back was so that I could tell people. And with that, there was also something I can only describe as love, a love so large and so complete that I do not have the capacity to hold it properly in memory. only the awareness that it existed and that it was directed at me and at every person alive on this earth. I came back to my body to the sound of noise and voices and light. Deborah had found me on the floor. She had called for emergency help, and they had come. I do not remember the ambulance. I do not remember the arrival at the hospital. My first clear memory after the experience is lying in a hospital bed with tubes in my arm and monitors beeping, and Deborah sitting beside me, holding my hand and crying quietly. I looked at her and I said her name, and she looked up at me, and the relief on her face is not something I will ever forget. They told me later that my heart had stopped, that I had been without a functioning heartbeat for a period of time that the doctors described as significant, that there had been a moment where the outcome was genuinely uncertain. They did what they needed to do. The doctors were excellent, and I am grateful for all of them. I was in the hospital for several days. I had a procedure and I recovered well enough, and I am now in a period of follow-up care. The days in the hospital were strange in a way I had not expected. People came to see me. My colleagues from work, a few old friends. Deborah's pastor came and sat with me for a while, a quiet man who did not try to turn my situation into a sermon, just sat there and prayed with me simply and left. And through all of it, I had this thing inside me that I could not talk about. This enormous, pressing, silent thing. Every person who came in asked how I was feeling, and I said the standard things. Better, grateful, planning to take it easy for a while, and all the time I was turning over what I had experienced, examining it from every angle, trying to decide what it was. The problem with my previous explanation, the brain chemistry under stress explanation, is that it does not account for what the experience was actually like from the inside. A hallucination, even a very vivid one, has a quality of being unstable, of things shifting and changing and not quite holding their shape. What I experienced was the opposite of that. Everything was completely still and completely clear. My own thoughts in that state were sharper than they have ever been in my ordinary life. I was more myself, if that makes any sense, in that experience than I have ever felt while walking around in a body. That is the part that I could not find a brain chemistry explanation for. Not the visuals, not the light, but the quality of being completely present and completely clear and completely myself, while simultaneously being somewhere that was not my living room floor. I did not tell anyone about the experience at first, not even Deborah. I lay in that hospital bed and I turned the whole thing over and over in my mind, and I kept trying to find the explanation that did not require it to be real. I kept trying to locate the point where my brain had simply generated an experience to survive what my heart was doing. But I could not find that point, because what I had experienced was not like the absence of something. It was not like darkness or noise or confusion. It was like the presence of something more real than anything I had ever touched or seen or heard in my regular life. And the things that had been shown to me were specific and coherent and detailed in ways that dreams simply are not. I went back to work after a few weeks of recovery. My organization was deep in the final preparations for the tournament. I threw myself back into it because that is who I am, and because I did not know what else to do with what I was carrying. I told myself I would think about it later. I told myself I would figure out what to do with it after the tournament was over. I sat through briefings and reviewed documents and answered emails and attended coordination meetings. I did all the normal things. And the whole time, underneath the surface of my normal professional life, what I had experienced and what I had been shown was sitting there like something very heavy that I kept stepping around. I had moments where I almost told someone. My supervisor, a man I have worked with for years and genuinely respect, he noticed I was different when I came back. He asked me in a quiet moment if I was really okay. I almost told him right then. I opened my mouth and I thought about how to start, and I looked at his face and I thought about what my face would look like to him, a man who had just had a cardiac event, telling him that he had met Jesus Christ and been shown the end of the world. And I closed my mouth and told him I was still adjusting and that I appreciated him asking. He clapped me on the shoulder and said to take it easy and walked off. I went back to my desk and felt the weight of what I was not saying pressed down a little harder. And then the sign appeared. He had told me in the experience that I would see something before I made the decision to share what I had been shown. He had shown me a specific thing, something in the sky, something that would be visible in a way that could not be fully explained away, that would appear as a kind of confirmation. I am not going to describe every detail of what he showed me about this sign, because some of it was personal, specific enough that it would only mean something to me. But I will tell you that what I saw in the sky on a specific morning a short while ago matched what he had shown me with a precision that stopped me completely. I was on my way into the office. It was early morning. I had come out of the park structure, and I was walking across an open area toward the building, and I looked up because something caught my eye. What I saw in the sky above me was something I had never seen before, in that way, in that combination, in that location. It was not something explainable by ordinary weather. It was not something I had ever seen in 11 years of working outdoors around large facilities. I stopped walking. Other people were walking past me. I noticed that some of them glanced up briefly and kept going, the way people do when they see something slightly unusual but have somewhere to be. I could not keep going. I stood in that parking area, and I looked at what was above me, and something happened inside me that I cannot describe, except to say that it was like a key turning in a lock that I had kept closed since I came back from that hospital bed. I sat in my car for almost 40 minutes. My phone kept buzzing with messages from inside the building. I did not answer any of them. I sat there and I thought about everyone I know. My colleagues who are running hard on these preparations, completely unaware. My friends who are making plans and booking things and excited about what is coming up. People in this city and in every city going about their lives. And I thought about what he had shown me and what I had promised, in my heart, in that experience, that I would do when the confirmation came. That evening, I drove home a different route than I usually take. I do not know why. I just turned a different direction without thinking about it. And on that different route, I passed a church, one I had never noticed before. And the sign outside the church had words on it that matched something he had said to me in the experience so closely that I pulled over for the second time that day and just sat with my hands on the steering wheel breathing. It was not the same words exactly, but the idea was identical. And I thought, how many times does something have to speak to me before I understand that it is speaking to me? I am writing this because I made a promise and I intend to keep it. What is coming is not something that politics can prevent or science can stop. It is not something that any government or international organization is going to announce in advance or manage effectively when it arrives. It is going to happen regardless of what any human being plans or decides or prepares in a worldly sense. The world as we know it, the world of instant communication and easy access and electronic everything is going to go dark. All of it, all at once, for 3 days and 3 nights. And in those 3 days, more will happen than just the darkness. The world will be shaken in ways that go far beyond the physical. I am not telling you this to make you afraid. Fear is not the point. The point is that there is time right now to do something that fear cannot do. There is time to make a decision about where you actually stand. There is time to have real conversations with the people in your life, not easy conversations, but real ones. There is time to gather what you need to be physically prepared, not because being physically prepared will save you from what this is, but because God himself gave the instruction to have food and water and candles and oil lamps and warmth. He said, prepare. That instruction came through to me clearly, and I believe it. Let me be specific about the practical things because I know practical people and I want to speak to them directly. Stock water, enough for your household for at least 4 days. Stock food that does not need cooking or that can be cooked over a flame. Get candles, and he specified white and unscented. I do not know all the reasons for that, but I am reporting what was given to me. Oil lamps with refined oil are also good. Blankets and warm clothing. Any medications that people in your household take regularly. Make sure you have enough of those on hand. When the signs in the sky begin, and you will know what you are seeing when you see it because it will be unlike anything you have seen before. Gather everyone you love and bring them inside. Secure your home, cover your windows so no light can come in and so you cannot see out. And then stay there, pray, call on God, and trust that you are protected. The instructions about not looking out, not opening the door, those are not symbolic. They are practical. What is moving through the world during those 3 days is genuinely dangerous in a way that goes beyond physical danger. He revealed this to me with great seriousness. This is not a natural disaster where going outside might be necessary. This is a specific situation where remaining inside with covered windows, under the covering of God through prayer, is the instruction. Follow it. But more than the physical preparation, there is the matter of your soul. And I know how that sounds coming from a man who spent most of his adult life thinking of himself as basically secular. I know that if I had read something like this 2 months ago, I would have raised an eyebrow and moved on with my day. I am asking you not to do that. I am asking you to sit with this for a moment. To think about whether you have made peace with God, whether you know Jesus Christ not as a religious concept but as the real person he is. Whether you have surrendered your life to him in a way that is sincere and genuine and not just a childhood memory. Because what he showed me about the people who went through those 3 days with a real relationship with God was markedly different from what he showed me about everyone else. The difference was not in their circumstances. Many of the believing people went through hard things during those 3 days. But inside, there was something holding them, something real that did not fail. His spirit was present with them in a way that was tangible, that stabilized them even when everything around them was completely unstable. And for those without that foundation, the 3 days was an exposure of the most frightening kind. An exposure of what happens when every external structure fails, and what is left is just you, and whatever you actually believe when things are at their worst. He told me to tell people this is an act of mercy. That sounds strange, I know. How can 3 days of world-ending darkness be mercy? But he revealed this to me clearly. The purpose is not punishment. The purpose is that God is doing something drastic to get the attention of a world that has become so noisy and so distracted and so full of itself that quieter means have stopped working. He is not willing that any person should be lost without a real chance to choose. And those 3 days, as terrible as they are in many ways, are 3 days in which every person on the earth is stripped of every distraction and left with the one question that matters. And he is there, he is present, he is answering, he will hear anyone who calls on him during those 3 days. That was one of the clearest things he showed me. Anyone who calls on the name of Jesus Christ sincerely during that darkness will be heard. Wherever you are, whatever you have done, whatever you have believed or not believed up to that point, he hears. I also want to say something to the people reading this who have loved ones who do not believe, because this is something he specifically showed me the importance of. The time to talk to your family members and your friends is now, before the darkness comes, not during it, when it will be too late to have a real conversation and when the darkness and fear will make everything harder to process. Now, he showed me clearly that the reason some people come through those 3 days intact, with their faith firm and their family together, is because someone in their life told them what was coming before it happened. Because they had a foundation of knowledge to stand on when the experience began. If you know someone who needs to hear this, the kindest thing you can do for them is tell them. Not every conversation will go well. Some people will laugh at you. Some people will think you have lost your mind. But tell them anyway. Because when the sky changes and the darkness falls, they will remember that you told them. And that memory may be the thing that sends them to their knees in prayer instead of into panic in the street. What comes after the 3 days is not the end. There is more, years more, and those years will be very difficult. What rises out of the aftermath of the darkness is not the restoration of what we had before. It is something that looks like restoration but is not. And the choices people make in that period, particularly around what I can only call the marking system that will be put in place, those choices are permanent in a way that choices almost never are. He showed me that clearly, and I want to be clear about it here. Do not accept it. Whatever it costs, do not accept it. Do not let the fear of being cut off from the system push you into accept something that will cut you off from something far more important. I am not a preacher. I am not a pastor. I have no church, and I am not starting one. I am a man who had a cardiac event at home while working late, who left his body for a period of time, and who was shown things by Jesus Christ that he asked me to share. That is what I am. That is all I am in this context. I have no platform, and I have no credentials for this kind of thing. What I have is a first-hand experience that I cannot explain away, a sign in the sky that confirmed what I was told to watch for, and a conscience that would not let me stay quiet after seeing that sign. My wife, Deborah, knows everything now. I told her after the sign, sitting in our kitchen on a Sunday evening. I told her the whole thing. She listened without interrupting for a very long time. When I finished, she did not say anything for a while, and then she reached across the table, and she took my hand and she said, "I have been praying for you for years. Not for something dramatic to happen to you, just for you to know him." And she started crying. I started crying. We sat in our kitchen for a long time that evening. She told me to write this down. She told me that if God showed me these things and brought me back, he brought me back for a reason, and I needed to honor that. She was the one who pushed me to finally do this after weeks of sitting on it. I am not asking you to change your entire life overnight based on reading something a sports official wrote on the internet. What I am asking is much simpler than that. I am asking you to take this seriously enough to think about it, to consider it, to maybe start asking questions that you have not been asking, to maybe have a conversation with God, even if you are not sure he is listening, even if you feel strange about it. I can tell you from where I now stand that he is listening. He is not far away. He is not indifferent. He knows your name and he knows your situation, and he has not given up on you. There are weeks left before the tournament that has consumed my professional life for the past several years reaches its final event. People all over the world are preparing to watch it, to celebrate it, to share it. There is real joy in that. I am not dismissing that. I have given years of my working life to making sure events like this run the way they are supposed to run. I respect the people I work with, and I respect the work itself. But underneath everything, the clock that nobody can hear is still running. And what he showed me is coming, not as a punishment for the joy people feel or the events they are planning, but as something that does not wait for anyone's plans to be finished. I want to speak for a moment to people who are reading this and feeling something, but are not sure what to do with that feeling. You do not have to have it all figured out. You do not have to understand every doctrine or every theological debate. He did not ask me to become a scholar. What he showed me is that what matters is the sincerity of your heart when you turn toward him. A simple and genuine prayer, just talking to God honestly, telling him where you are, and asking him to show you what is true. That is enough to start. He hears simple things. He hears honest things. He heard me when I was lying on a floor with my heart stopped, Before I had ever in my life prayed a deliberate prayer. He hears you wherever you are and in whatever condition you are in. Tell the people in your life. Have the hard conversation. Do not let someone you love be without this warning because you were afraid of how it would sound. Gather what you need. Prepare your home. Cover your windows when the signs in the sky begin. Bring your family inside and do not open the door. Pray. Call on the name of Jesus Christ and keep calling on it. He told me he will hear everyone who calls on him during those 3 days. Everyone. I have done what I was asked to do. I have written this down. What you do with it is between you and God. My name is Marcus Ellison. I am 44 years old. I work as an officiating official. About a month and a week ago, my heart stopped in my living room. I left my body and I met Jesus Christ, and he showed me what is coming. I came back because he sent me back, and now I have told you. Please be ready.